In Guild Wars 2, there's a gear prefix called Celestial, which I think is dumb and stupid and boring, and I'm going to prove it to you. Now, the reason I'm here with this slander is because a wee bit ago I made this comment where I in jest called Celestial gear garbage and crap and all that other fun stuff, and people in the comments made sure to share their distaste and prove me wrong. Now, the context around this was a conversation on how building your character is important, as having a mishmash of stats that doesn't benefit how you're playing will leave you at a severe disadvantage, as the game doesn't hold your hand, and having poor stat allocation further lets the game stack the deck against you, which, when looking at Celestial, yeah, it doesn't really help you with anything specific. For those of you unaware, gear in Guild Wars is assigned 2 to 4 stats, usually with one major and the remainder of them being minor. These are known as armor prefixes. For example, the Berserker prefix has a major in power with a minor in precision and ferocity, while the Karen prefix has majors in condition damage and a minor in power and vitality. You get the general idea. But Celestial doesn't have a major stat. Instead, you get minor boosts to all stats, which isn't necessarily bad, mind you, it's just not ideal in most situations. Now, before I go further, I do want to clarify that this video is made mostly in jest. There really isn't any wrong way to build a character. I just thought it was funny how tribalistic people got about it, and decided to look a bit further into it. First, I'm going to say what I think, and I think that Celestial gear is boring, and ignores pretty much all of the build customization. Celestial is the de facto jack of all trades for gear. You aren't necessarily good at any one thing, but you're also not bad at it either. You're just okay at everything, which in itself isn't a terrible concept. In fact, I'll even admit that it has its place. It's just, well, its place is not really as widespread as a lot of people seem to think. First, I want to look at the raw damage. Let's take the 2 main damage stats as an example, power and condition. Now, these two are the 2 most basic building blocks in most DPS builds. Generally enough, these two don't mix. You have to pick one or the other, as most weapons are either good at power or condition damage, and very few can walk that line and do both. So with that, it would make more sense just to pick one and build around that, because even if you used both power and condition centric weapons, you can only have one set out at once. And once again, if you use both, you won't be particularly great at either. Now, with that being said, I'm pretty sure there is some warrior fast switching build that would work great with this concept, but even in that situation, wouldn't it make more sense to go half and half with power and condi centric gear instead of all of the minor buffs that you get from Celestial? As with the numbers being spread out so thin, there will inevitably be numbers put into places that just aren't important for certain roles and activities. To put this to the test, I went ahead and got a training dummy with 1,000,000 health in a raid scenario where all buffs are applied to both parties. And when it came to kill time, the focused power build beat out the Celestial by about 60 seconds with a 30 to 40% damage difference, which isn't the world, yes, but that's still a really large difference. But okay, let's look away from DPS for a second. What if you wanted to be more supportive with banners and shouts? Yeah, in that case, it'd make more the difference than with damage. But in that situation also, I'd ask why you wouldn't just build with a major in healing or boon duration. That way you'd be more effective and prepared for that supportive role, rather than what Celestial does, which just prepares you for everything, but not super well. However, with all of that, that is admittedly where my arguments start to fall apart. See, outside of most instance PvE content, yeah, it's less important to have a focused build. Just doing open world stuff solo is perfectly fine with the Celestial. While I would say it'd be better to specialize a little bit into something, it does go a long way to have that extra bit of survivability in the event that stuff just doesn't go your way. Sometimes you just have to adapt to the situation, and Celestial gear as a whole does help leagues with that. It's also the current meta for World v World, which, alright, that might be true. It might be the meta. It might be the best for that. But also, I'm pretty sure that's hogwash. Like, no offense, I'm pretty sure what your stats are is irrelevant when there are 30 players all spamming in a pit. So I'll only give you half a point on that one. Now, all the comments that I got on Celestial, I noticed that none of them brought up the one thing that I see as a complete benefit to. I don't know why no one else brought it up, but that's just how good Celestial is for trying out builds. When you're unfamiliar with the class or just don't know how you want to play it, it's nice to have a numerically rounded character, as you can focus on the feel of your playstyle rather than the pure damage numbers. And hell, even if you were focusing on damage, you could see what objectively does more damage, since there are no differing stats to sway your opinion either way. This is likely the reason why you're given a full Celestial set when you use a character boost. With this whole thing aside, I don't like Celestial. I think it's boring, and I largely don't feel the benefit of being a jack of all trades, which I am willing to accept might be due to how I play Guild Wars 2, but if you're still kind of wishy-washy on committing to a playstyle or just don't really want to engage with the admittedly kind of min-maxing nature of building a character, then honestly, Celestial's perfectly fine to stick with. Just do keep a note that if you go into a raid group that's trying to speedrun content, they probably won't like your presence. And on that note, thanks for watching. I'm sorry to all the Celestial Gear Andes that thought they could show me the light, because despite your efforts, I'm going to stick to the dark side of Lord Vader and the Condi Untamed Hunter build. If you liked the video, then subscribe, and if you didn't like it and think that I'm a mammoth with an empty skull, then still subscribe, but also leave a comment on how I'm wrong and I should go back to eating rocks. With all that, this is the end of the video, and I'm gonna go back to writing my script where I bitch about Destiny 2, cause man, I'm not happy, and complaining is the only thing I know how to do.